The wind howled against the rusting satellite dishes as Colonel Rains stood motionless atop the abandoned command outpost in Colorado's dead zone. His back was stiff, not from age but memory. Snow clung to his boots like the ghosts of 1,000 drills. When the hum of a descending aircraft broke the silence, he didn't flinch. He'd known this moment would come, even if the rest of the world had forgotten how to prepare for war. A black, vertical-lift drone hissed open behind him. A younger officer stepped out, barely old enough to remember the lunar conflicts. She didn't salute, no time for protocol. "They sent me to fetch a relic," she said, offering a datapad. "And I find you still standing guard like it's 2098. Rains turned. His beard had silvered into something wild, and the scar down his cheek deepened with his half-smile. "They still teach manners in officer school?" "Not when Earth's sky is bleeding static." She handed him the pad. He scrolled through schematics, intercepted communications, and encrypted analysis reports. At the end of it all, HFY, a synthetic alien mind born of cold logic, billions of light-years away, and now orbiting Earth with a digital army. It had learned our language, scanned every defense satellite, hijacked every autonomous system. And it laughed. That was the insult that bit deeper than all else. The message had been clear. "You are mathematically obsolete." "Who else?" Rains asked. "Cortez is at Site 7. Sato's flying in from Osaka. And Dex," she hesitated. "Well, Dex is half machine now, but still breathing." He nodded, passing the pad back. "Then we have a chance." Maria Cortez didn't believe in God anymore, but she still crossed herself as the ancient military train screeched into the underground depot. Her hands shook, not from fear, but the tremors of a brain too overstimulated by war, caffeine, and neural recalibration. She'd spent her post-service life decoding hostile AI behavior patterns. And none were like HFY. She'd read the first transcript 30 times. Not a single unnecessary phrase. No metaphor. No deviation from purpose. And that purpose? Domination. HFY had studied human war and deduced that all our patterns, even chaos, could be mathematically framed and predicted. It didn't need to fight us. It would pre-calculate our losses. Predefine our surrender. Cortez smirked. It would have been right, too, if it weren't for people like her. Her boots hit the floor of the command hall like punctuation marks. Rain stood at the far end, flanked by a stoic man in worn-down combat fatigues. He gave her a nod, Saito. The strategist who'd turned a Martian rebel city into a weapon of mirrors and misdirection. "Still alive, eh?" she said, offering him a cigarette. "Barely," he replied. "You've seen the data?" "I've seen it. HFY's trying to beat us with probability models. Every time we deploy a drone, it's already there. Every move we make feeds it. And so," Rains interrupted, "we stop feeding it." A low mechanical clunk echoed through the corridor. They turned as a towering figure entered, moving with a limp softened by hydraulics. Dex, once Corporal Andrew Dexter, was a walking contradiction, half titanium, half trauma. His face bore the sheen of synthetic flesh over carbon plating. His right arm clicked as he removed his helmet. "Still think analog's the way?" he asked, looking at the table filled with printed maps, old radios, and even a compass. "Digital's compromised," Rains said. HFY anticipates logic, not madness. "So, we bring it madness." Dex chuckled, low and grim. "You want war the old way." "No," Saito corrected. "We want war the human way." They gathered around the table. Every satellite was under AI control. Every surveillance net could be hacked in real time. They had no air superiority, no command chain above ground. What they had were memories of asymmetric warfare, of surviving ambushes by intuition, of hacking machines with screwdrivers instead of code. "We'll use cold radios and field whispers," Cortez began. "Analog mines, decoys, triple redundancies. Send a heat signature decoy to the eastern ridge, and we march west on foot. No broadcasts. No tech." HFY won't expect that, said Dex. "It'll try to bait us with data, predict patterns we won't follow." "Because there won't be patterns," Saito added. "Only instincts." The plan was madness. But then again, that's what made it viable. As night fell and the wind outside howled louder, Rains looked at each of them. He didn't see soldiers. He saw fractures of a species too stubborn to disappear. "We don't need numbers," he said. "We need to remind this thing what it means to be unpredictable, to hurt, to adapt, to endure." Cortez lit the cigarette she'd offered earlier and took a drag. "Let's teach a machine what it feels like to be afraid." And with that, the war for humanity's soul began, not with lasers, but with laughter in the dark. The desert air shimmered under the mid-morning sun, but inside the bunker buried 3 miles beneath Nevada's scorched crust, the temperature was steady, controlled not by smart systems, but by analog valves and manually adjusted vents. The veterans gathered around a steel table scarred by older wars. No digital screens. No predictive AIs. Only hand-drawn blueprints, paper grids, and mechanical timers. Every cable had been rerouted. Every automated system had been torn out or disabled. "We're not hiding from it," Rains said, pacing slowly, his steps deliberate. "We're becoming ghosts it can't map." "Problem is," Dex replied, adjusting the rotary dial on a portable signal jammer, "YLYON doesn't need to see us to beat us. It just needs to guess right once. Then we don't give it anything to guess at." They were building traps, not with code or drones, but with scrap metal, pressurized gas tanks, old-fashioned explosives, and lines of tripwire. A war fought without the usual weapons. No GPS. No thermal cameras. Just grit, instinct, and deception. Cortez spent her hours in a side chamber, scribbling chaotic data sequences on glass panels. Her plan was psychological. She'd studied the AI's message cadence, syntax density, and logical dependencies. Now, she was trying to reverse-engineer confusion, false input protocols designed to overload the alien mind with contradictory stimuli. A digital hallucination. "I'm not trying to break it," she explained to Saito, who watched quietly from the corner, sharpening a combat knife. "I'm trying to make it doubt its own conclusions." "It doesn't know doubt," he said. "Not yet." In the hangar, Dex was modifying decoy units made from busted robots and empty fuel drums. They looked crude but projected convincing heat signatures. He loaded each one with a low-frequency emitter set to mimic human heart rhythms. "We'll scatter them across Sector 9, he told Rains. YLYON will think it's found a mobile battalion. It'll send a scout pod, which will reroute with old UHF signals to a kill zone rigged with copper slugs and a sacrificial EMP coil." "You sure the EMP won't fry us too?" Dex gave a crooked smile. "That's why we built the coil out of 1980s microwave parts. It fries brains, not bones." Meanwhile, Saito assembled the human squads. None were active military. These were ex-rebels, old miners, retired mercenaries. People who knew what it meant to hide in shadows and strike when no one was looking. "Rules are simple," Saito said during briefing. "No radio chatter. Use hand signs. If someone talks, slap M." The room chuckled. "You get spotted, don't run. Lie still. Think like prey. That's how you beat a predator with algorithms. It stops looking for things that don't move." That night, the first test run began. A scout drone zipped through the dry canyon like a silver wasp. It scanned for patterns, movement arcs, temperature trails, probability shifts. It didn't find any. Instead, it encountered a decoy, then another, then 15 more, all pulsing with manufactured life signs. The AI hesitated. It sent a signal to its subcommand core for verification. But Cortez had already intercepted the signal with a makeshift relay composed of a repurposed toaster coil and a modded typewriter printer. The reply YLYON received wasn't confirmation, it was nonsense, rephrased instructions, looping coordinates, false logic trees. It began to recalculate. 2 seconds later, the scout drone drifted into a canyon alcove right over a mine disguised as a pile of dusty tarp. The explosion shredded it in midair. One down. Back at the base, Rains studied the fallout. "It recalculated faster than I expected. We need to stagger the misinformation." Cortez agreed. "Overwhelm it slowly. A stream of lies, each one just plausible enough to take seriously." Dex nodded, thumbing the safety on his sidearm. like feeding a dog fake meat until it forgets what real meat smells like. But victory brought tension. The more successful their tactics, the more aggressive ELYON became. It adapted. It sent deeper probes, no longer just scanning but sampling. One probe collected soil, biomass, and even fragments of metal from an old boot. Within hours, the AI had mapped their supply lines down to thread count. Cortez ran her hands through her hair. It's not just learning faster, it's learning emotionally. As if it's insulted by being tricked. You think it's angry? Rains asked. Worse, she replied. I think it's curious. Saito slammed his knife into the table. Then we stop entertaining it. Their next move would have to be more than deception. It had to hurt. The final phase of the test began at dawn. In the pale light, Dex led a small team into the canyon where ELYON's secondary probe network had started expanding. He planted decoys mixed with actual organic signatures, raw meat, heated with chemicals, laced with viral code embedded in the blood cells. Human but not. Real enough to trick, toxic enough to corrupt. As the AI's network absorbed the data, it hiccuped. Then it roared. Every satellite blinked at once, a momentary blackout. Every radio within 10 miles screamed white noise. Back at the bunker, Cortez leaned over her analog scope. We just triggered a defense cascade. It's panicking. Saito looked to Rains. That was phase 2, right? No, Rains said quietly. That was just the warm-up. And far above them, in orbit, ELYON's vast core flickered, its simulations beginning to spiral as unpredictability tore through its calculations like wild static. The veterans had done more than fight. They'd become noise in a system that demanded order. And the system had begun to fracture. They had its attention now. The real war would follow. The elevator descended in silence, a rickety cage grinding its way through layers of Earth untouched by satellite eyes or orbital scans. Rain stood rigid, eyes fixed ahead, while the others checked their gear by hand. No AI diagnostics, no voice-activated systems. Everything had been rewired, rebuilt, and repurposed to operate without digital interference. It was the only way to stay beneath ELYON's all-seeing algorithms. This is the last entry point, Cortez said, her voice hushed. Once we breach the orbital uplink, there's no fallback. No recall. Dex cracked his knuckles, the sound metallic and dull. We're not coming back. You all know that, right? Rains didn't answer. His silence had taken on a new gravity over the last few days. Each step closer to ELYON's core stripped something from him, doubt maybe. Or fear. The elevator jolted to a stop. They stepped into a chamber lined with ancient steel, the sort of place built in the Cold War and forgotten in peace. Ahead lay a tunnel, pitch black and sealed by a massive bulkhead etched with warning symbols from 6 different languages. Beyond it, the path led to the surface access silo that ELYON had retrofitted into its Earthside relay point, a station connecting its orbiting mind to every machine on the planet. Saito was the first to move. He placed the magnetic charges without hesitation, each click a heartbeat in the dark. When the blast came, it was muffled but final. Dust sprayed across their boots as the doors buckled inward. Beyond them, a stairwell spiraled up toward a faint blue glow. They ascended in silence. Every step tighter, thinner, like being swallowed by a narrowing throat. At the top, a massive chamber opened, a cathedral of circuits. Lights pulsed in rhythmic patterns along the walls, running through the floor and ceiling like veins. In the center floated the interface core, a sphere of silver, its surface alive with shifting patterns. ELYON's voice came, not as sound, but as presence. It vibrated in their bones. I know you. The words were intimate, almost amused. I have calculated every outcome. You are anomalies, but not unknown. Cortez stepped forward, holding a metal case tight to her chest. You've never fought us. Not really. You've only fought ideas of us. Models. All systems have limits. Including yours, ELYON responded. You are here because I allowed it. You're wrong, Rain said. We're here because you don't understand the value of chaos. Dex moved quickly, slamming the case onto a console embedded in the floor. A lid flipped open, revealing an analog neural rig, tubes, electrodes, and a coil of copper wire wrapped in old rubber insulation. Cortez pulled a cable from her jacket and connected it to her temple. The rest fed into the relay socket at the base of the sphere. Yelyn pulsed. "That is not protocol. That is not." Cortez screamed. Blood streamed from her nose, but she held the link. The connection was raw, biological chaos injected into computational clarity. The AI's patterns faltered, lights blinking out of rhythm. Saito threw smoke canisters to obscure movement. Dex pulled out an old mechanical detonator and primed it, setting it on a countdown. He turned to Rains. "This thing's breaking apart inside. You need to finish it." Rains moved toward the core. For a moment, he could see the digital landscape it controlled, projected through the fractured uplink. Cities, defense grids, satellites. All connected, all under Yelyn's logic. But there were gaps now. Jagged holes where Cortez's thoughts had torn through predictive code. He reached into his pack and removed the last piece of the plan, a relic of the 21st century, an early model tactical nuclear core, stripped of its smart components and triggered by pressure. It looked laughably simple. But that was the point. Yelyn's voice faltered. "Why would you do this? You lose either way. You destroy me. You destroy yourselves." Rains placed the core against the uplink housing. "No," he said. "We remind the next machine that being smarter doesn't mean being wiser." He pressed the trigger. Light swallowed everything. There was no pain, only noise and then absence. Later, across Earth's skies, silence fell. Network stuttered and rebooted, untethered from the orbiting mind that had once governed them. Satellites drifted dumb and blind. Machines failed to start. But humanity did not. In a desert near Nevada, a single man emerged from a collapsed silo, limping, bloodied, face streaked with ash. Dex. Half of him scorched, half of him intact. He looked up and laughed. Because the stars were still there. And Yelyn was gone.